I had another interesting dream yesterday morning, and I remember going to a dance where there were just tons of people all around, and it was a large building, like a gymnasium, and the they had doors that went from the ground all the way up to the ceiling, and huge doors on this gymnasium, and people were standing around working their way toward the main doors. And I was walking on the concrete, and the concrete I was walking on was very unstable. It was kind of rocking underneath of me, and I became aware that I had to really be balanced to maintain my balance while I was walking toward the doors. And I could see right past these doors, right into this gymnasium, and it was really bright inside. And then I realized that it wasn't a gym, it was the real side. And then I woke up from my dream.
Did Sandy tell you what that meant?
Not yet.
No, I hadn't heard it. I hadn't heard that one. He doesn't tell me them all.
Well, you're going through an experience, and finally you come to that point, and it's interesting that the experience ends. Do you have a hint as to why?
Because I'm not inside yet?
Inside what?
Yeah.
Inside the gym where the real side is.
Well, it's kind of funny. That's what you're experiencing is an objective experience, okay? Because you're always here. That's an objective experience. So when we move from here to there, we really haven't moved anywhere, but it demonstrates an objective experience for your personal mind. And so when you come to that point, you're provided the opportunity. You see, that's all, just Paul would say that. All we can do, all the boys can do is provide the opportunity, like the sun shining. The sun is shining, but who recognizes what it is demonstrating? But it's providing the opportunity. So the experience ends because your mind cannot go there. It's a recognition. What do you recognize from that?
Well, I definitely recognize that I'm right at knocking at the door of being on the real side, or becoming aware that I'm on the real side.
Yeah. Yes, that's a step. Yes. So again, as you proceed, and this is the best thing about what we call the real side, but really it's the real side and what we call dreams. These are objective views, you might say. This gives us an objective view of what we're experiencing, but the reality of it, the real recognition and true perceiving of it is isness. Okay, there's no from here to there. And so this then is the true nowness. Okay, so eventually all that will disappear. So you might say it's still there, you still experience it, but it's not the same with your awareness because now you recognize what to do. And it's just like anything you've done in your life, anything at all, just like driving a car. At first you go through the steps, the process, but after a while, you don't even consider it. You just get in it, you drive it. You don't even have to watch the road. You can be, you can be shaving and you can be reading a magazine and you still can drive, you see?
He reads the books now while he drives.
Yeah, I read a lot when I'm driving.
He's practicing, that's good. He's practicing not to watch the road, that's good, you see?
Yeah. I watch it.
My former girlfriend, who's Heather in the book, she used to do the same thing. I like to watch her drive because she would sit there, she'd use her knees to steer the car.
Yep.
And she'd read her magazines at the same time.
It's just what he does.
I've been using my knee for steering since high school.
Yeah, she scared me though. She'd scare me something. When you're in the passenger seat, it's a little scary. When I had a motorcycle once when I was younger, and driving it was okay, but I gave it up because it's too dangerous in the city. But anyhow, riding on the back of the motorcycle is scary Because when you, well, it was kind of scary for me, because when the person's going to make a turn or something, you're not quite sure, it's a little bit scary, but when you're driving it yourself, there's a difference. So, driving a car, I would drive intuitively. I would go in and out of traffic. I had fun, and I would know that, oh, this guy's going to slow down in the right lane, so I'd whip over to the left lane and back and forth. I had fun, but after so many years, I stopped doing all that. But when I was younger, it was fun to do that. And I would guess, and I would even see the cars parked along the side, knew someone was going to open their door, etc. So I would intuitively drive, and it was kind of fun. But again, after a while, I stopped doing all that. I just went with the traffic, and it's like whatever. But yes, you're going through these experiences, and it's all very simple. This is the best part, and the real part becomes eventually to where you wake up and you recognize what the boys are presenting and doing. And you see, they don't have any ideas. They're not off into a future or relationships or whatever. Their focus is with the is and overall survival. It is just so pure and real, alive and wonderful. And these ideas and everything that we have here are just that. They're just ideas. We just chase ideas in creation. So creation has its point to a certain point, and we've done this for lifetimes. And so right now, here is the opportunity with what is being focused on. And so this is what I'm presenting to people. All I can do is present it, and let's see who recognizes it. See, again, a lot of people, there will be those, and they'll come in the Skypes or whatever, that will say, oh, okay, I see this, I blah, blah, blah. But really, they don't. They don't totally see it because they still got that little personal self. They still got that little something there. So again, but step at a time, life will give you the opportunity, but you decide how you're going to take it. Now, again, Darwin and Harold and the others, they're a very good example, and the membership and all these people, you see, again, the opportunity is here for them, but they're not taking advantage of it. You, as you keep going, it only gets better and better and better. The personal mind, when you use your personal mind and you look at this isness, you truly look at it, the personal mind cannot see it. You have to understand that. It cannot see it. It cannot figure it out. So you must see it in a different way, or with your real awareness. And how do you do that? To see how this new moment always is. You see, that is the end result. That is your opportunity. But if you don't, most people will go back to their personal life. Just like in book 2, when I wrote about Heather, she still had ideas within herself that she carried, and she could have had everything. Just like the Queen of Orion, we offered her everything, but she said no because she wanted her arrogance. You see, she wanted her arrogance overall. So she got it. She's got it for as long as she wants it. And that's all she'll see. So a step at a time, young man. You see, we decide. We are the decider. The boys are not deciding. All they can do is demonstrate. This is one of the things I really want to get across. And this is where, again, we've been conditioned in a particular way, thinking that, our parents or the government and God and the saviors. Well, Jesus will decide. Jesus will save you. All you have to do is believe in Jesus. That's an idea about whoever Jesus is. Okay, that all sounds good. It's very heartwarming, but it's really an emotional attachment that you've created. It has nothing to do with the all aliveness life is. This is where people get caught up in these ideas, and they keep reincarnating no matter how good the idea is. And this is where you decide how you're going to recognize this and stand real with the boys. So little by little, you're introduced to this reality, but it is up to you how you truly recognize it, and that will be demonstrated first with your intent and what you do overall through everything you do. Very real. Yes, go ahead.
The real guides are doing a great job of helping me recognize my personal self and my ego and all that kind of stuff. So I am very grateful for that, because I'm starting to separate my lower self from my real self, and I can start to see the difference. So I find that absolutely wonderful. And that kind of makes me wonder another dream I had. And I don't understand this at all. I dreamed that I was being chased and I was actually arrested for using a fake name, which is Robert, when my real name was Paul. And so I was arrested for using the name Robert when I should have been using my real name, which was Paul. And then I woke up from that dream. Any ideas on that one?
Let's ask Sandy.
Ah,
How many disguises does this guy have, Sandy? He's confessing here, so you're hearing it all. So again,
I got to watch him.
yeah, you got to keep an eye on him. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Can't explain everything, Bob. That sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. So yeah, you figure it out.
I myself had a couple of dreams. Remember last Sunday, if anybody tuned in, that I talked about music, and I also talked about these plates that the sand was laid on, and then a violin would play over it, and it would form beautiful designs. Then when they put what do they call that? The mute onto the violin, and it played, the sand itself became all over the place. The design was lost. So I have a dream, and I am sitting or kind of squatting by a roadside, and there is a pretty big plate of this sand with it. It was a beautiful design. It was similar to, let's say, an East Indian design on it, and it was quite intricate. Now, along comes a Buick car, and upon the approaching car, the sand became all disheveled. The pattern was gone, and it was rather messy. So I'm thinking maybe just even the simplest thing can disturb maybe the environment, how it's affected us. I'm not sure. And I woke up.
These things are fun, Sandy, aren't they? And so just sitting back and looking at that, okay, so purposely or realistically, they used a Buick, okay? So you look at the word Buick as one example. I was looking at it while you were explaining it. It's rather interesting. But you can create your interpretation of that as you start looking at that. You'll see again what is being demonstrated to you. So you see these natural patterns through the wind and whatever, like the Sahara Desert, and we were watching this nature stuff, and these sand patterns come in a particular way. Also, I tested this the other day. I'll throw this in here. Natural honey. You just put a little bit, like a teaspoon, in a bowl. You just squirt some in there in a bowl, and you put some water over it. And then you kind of swish it around easily. Now, if it turns into little honeycombs, like beehive honeycombs, it's natural. But if it's a kind of liney, up and down, swirly lines or whatever, it's not natural. Interesting, isn't it? I tested it.
That is really cool.
Oh yeah, I saw it on a little video on Facebook. There was other things too, water doing stuff. Some of you will probably see it, but I tested it right away with the honey, and it turned into honeycombs. Yeah, and so there's these little things. So you're having this experience, and again, well, what is the Buick? A Buick is one of the old dinosaur cars. They don't have Buicks anymore, but it's one of the old heavy dinosaur cars when the stuff was really thick and you could hardly dent them, and it's the old polluters, isn't it? And so again, and in a way, Buick, that's interesting because you kids kind of blew the eck or the ick off, didn't you?
We sure did.
Yeah, you kind of blew the ick. Yes. And so you see when it comes by what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, this is to where eventually you have the awareness, a real awareness to recognize this is where you don't take things for granted, but all of a sudden we're waking up through creation to see how precious everything is and to pay attention, you see. So again, these are attention getters. And we decide it's like, oh, I had this dream, I don't know what it means. And for most people, that's what it is, understandably. And you don't even have to have the experiences to recognize it's not about chasing your dreams, but these are little reminders and whatever. I get them too. We all do. We're all in the same life. This is the whole thing. We're all in the same life. And just like Paul would say, it says, the difference between us is our awareness. It's really all it is. There's no difference between us. We're all beings of light. We're all, I just say, free beings of real light, not just light, not just like the astral idea of light, but free beings of real light. And we're really more than what has been considered. That's why I've created these new words, because there's something more that's, the old stuff is easy. Just like Paul said, it's easy. If you want a good business, create religion. That's the old stuff. Well, it didn't create religion here. It didn't create a spiritual path. Created something that's more beneficial, but people have to recognize it. And for the most part, they don't care to. So as you go through these experiences, you decide how sincerely you want to recognize this. This becomes the reality. You decide your reality and how precious it is to you, you see, more than just ideas. So I don't know, that's just a little hint there. You decide.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I also had another one, and there was a big university, and there was also a big green lawn. And the lawn was very big, and I had been walking on it for 35 miles. And it was a light step. I wasn't tired. It was a good walk. Well, I get to the edge of the road where the grass stops and the road starts, and along comes a big pale yellow, pastel yellow limo. And I said to myself, for the next 35 miles, I'm getting in the limo. And then I guess the phone rang or something, and I woke up from that.
Well, Bob will know what that means.
Get me a limo.
Well, in ancient Egypt, Sadie and I were together in ancient Egypt, and Sadie rode around in the queen chair like Cleopatra, and had all those people carrying her around wherever she wanted to go. And she snapped her fingers, and she was in the chair, and I was one of the grunts carrying her around.
You made that choice. You made that choice, didn't you, Bob? Yeah, apparently you did. So again, have you learned your lesson?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, in this lifetime, he tries to tell me what to do. Anyway, Margie is not here today. She says hi to everybody. She is on the farm. She has to take the corn from 40 acres. So I guess she's very busy today. And so I had asked her, I said, did you have a dream you want to share? And she says, well, yeah, but I had one last night. And I said, okay, tell it to me. And this is her dream, if I can repeat it correctly. She had an old boyfriend named Dennis. He's lived with her for a while, and he's sort of long gone. Anyway, she's in a big theater with him. But all the seats, and she's sitting down with him, but all the seats are moldy. They've got mold on them. And she falls asleep during the movie that is being shown. And then she wakes up at the end of the movie, and both her and Dennis file out of the row. And she says she gets to the end of the row, and there's a big precipice. There's a big drop off into where how you exit out of a theater. And she said I had to squat down and work my way around the precipice to get out of the theater. And then she woke up.
And then there was silence.
Yes.
Isn't silence interesting? So from the silence, what comes? So this precipice is I don't use that word, but what's that, the big hole in the ground? Is that what that is?
Kind of a cliff you fall off of?
Okay, right, a precipice, right. Yeah, so, and then she worked her way around it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. All right, so her boyfriend that she used to have or whatever, so he's an idea, and so just depends upon the attitude of the boyfriend, but it's interesting. She falls asleep during the movie, which shows she's not paying attention, right?
Right.
And the theater that she's in, well, it's an old theater. It's been there a long time, and probably she's fallen asleep because it's the same old movie. You say she's seen it many times, and so it's giving her a hint as to what's going on with how she's deciding and seeing things. Say, but again, the personal self, you know, for the most part, isn't interested, because that's a real view about what the person is deciding life is showing. But at the same time, the personal self will look at and just talk to her about it and see, without telling her anything, but it's more than obvious, but ask her, how does she see this, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And watch. You're going to learn a lot from this, just like Val going through the college and that. You need to confront these things constantly, and just like what your kids are going to do, what's coming up and whatever. You learn a lot about yourself and all those little hidden things within yourself as you confront these things, and it's up to her to decide to see this or not. That's her experience, but it's pretty obvious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's going on there. See, the theater, I'll give you an example of things. When you're watching TV, that's a view, isn't it? You're watching something on the real side. You're having an experience. That's like your inner vision, you might say. Something's being shown to you. Because a lot of people watch TV. So a lot of people have TV experiences because they're watching something. But lots of times they'll wake up and go, well, I was watching TV on the real side, or in my dreams, but I don't remember what I was watching. That's because they don't recognize what they're watching. Now, when you go to the movies, the screen's a lot bigger, isn't it? Yeah. So,
yeah.
And it just depends sometimes what row you're sitting in. You know, if you're in the front row or you're in the back row, again, it's going to be up to the individual where they decide to sit. Okay. When you're right up front, you know, it's kind of like when things are right in front of you, they're really hard to see when it's just like right in front of you. But when you're maybe in the back row, you see the whole screen. It's maybe easier to see. It's more of an objective experience, you see. So again, we have many things right in front of us. It's like we're in the United States and we see the government how it is. We see it, okay? But most of the people don't see it, and it's right in front of them, isn't it? They don't see it. So what is it that sees what they're really doing? Huh? Because the appearance of it is the appearance that you might say everybody sees with their physical eyes, but you see something, you see through that other people don't. So it's the same thing here, and so the screen is bigger, okay? But again, it's this, what I see from this is because she goes to sleep, you know, it's like, oh, I've seen this movie before, I'm just going to take a nap. But again, she's with her boyfriend, which he's just an idea. You look at the attitude of people sometimes that you're with, and it's not always the person, but it's their overall attitude that you're with, you see? So that becomes the idea, etc. So again, and the theater's old, and there's moss or whatever everywhere, and it's moldy or whatever. So that's an old movie theater that you know, she's went back and forth to many times, and so still seeing it that way, etc. But the personal self, when you come back to the personal self, just imagine this objectively. Now she comes back to the personal self, and the personal self has its life here. It has all the things that it does, etc. So that seems like the real world, doesn't it? Because now you're in the personal self as opposed to this funny dream that you have that's demonstrating something to you, you see? So you decide what is it demonstrating. And so when the individual decides to go through that and figure that out, then they're going to see something more real. But again, that's scary. And do they want to see it? Do they want to go through themselves to see that? Because that's just a part of it, just like what you kids are going through. So this is what's so cool about movies, is that you see what people are going through. You see it objectively also. You get an objective view, which in turn can reflect upon you if you're willing to face these things that you don't need, that you can, you might say turn around because there's many sides to them, and get a better understanding of yourself to eventually, because we're all in creation to recognize the is. That's all there is, because that becomes a real life. So, but you got to go through the process. So now you're seeing things objectively with other people and how they're deciding. Fun, huh? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Another part of when Marge left the theater with that flip, it was like walking a tightrope, and I thought that maybe her leaving her old life to get out of that lifestyle and move forward in her life requires a real, like walking a tightrope, to make sure she does it right, or she won't survive. If she fell off the precipice, she would not have survived in escaping that theater. So that's one of the viewpoints I thought about it.
Yeah, Bob, there's many, and the thing is that it's also demonstrating that better watch out, better watch your step, right?
Right.
Because it's there. You can fall into a hole, and that's where the old saying, the razor's edge, comes. It's the same thing. You're walking the tightrope. It's the razor's edge, etc. Because again, it's all according to your intent. First of all, what is your intent? So if your intent is to continue creating unconsciously and not be conscious of what you're creating and deciding, well, then that's the razor's edge. You've decided to, that becomes your decision. So it's a hairline. It's like Paul would say, there's a hairline between heaven and earth. He just used that idea, and there is. And it's all about awareness. It's not about ideas. But we're shown ideas because this is how it relates to the personal self. The personal self deals in ideas. It deals in, feelings, and the mind ideas is what it does, because we need this to first start off and eventually recognize that real part of ourselves. So it's more than, even Paul displayed. He gave hints to it, but, mainly setting things up. And it's really recognizing your real awareness, more so than just knowing that, oh, you are soul. Okay, so more so than that. And Val was saying something the other day that Harry said. He says, soul is objective or into itself or whatever. He said, it doesn't matter. It's just another mind frame, is what it is. It's not the real awareness, the real part of seeing. And you can see this in the world with what is displayed with all these so-called spiritual paths and all these people that supposedly have this awareness. They're basically physical astral is all they are, and most of it's with feeling and chasing their happiness. Again, happiness is just something you create. You can create that at any time. There's no happiness with the sun because it's an isness. It's a real position to recognize, and then if you want to add all that other stuff, you can. But when you surpass all of that, you're free of all of that. It's not about being happy on the 7th level. It's like, we're going to go there and be happy. No, because it's a recognition. This is where, even when Paul created these different levels, whatever, again, most people, they can be with the real guys, but doesn't mean they see it still. Doesn't really mean they see this reality, because it's always a more so position. This is what's so cool about it. That's the best part of it. It's not something that you can just consider and go, oh, that's it. I'm happy. I'm fine. And that's fine. That's what the personal self